Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike. And before we get too sucked into this awesome interview, do us both a favor and like, subscribe, and share this amazing piece of entertainment because I am here with the one, the only, Bradley! How you doing, Bradley?
I'm doing great. Hello. I thought there would be like a pause. Remember? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it gets added in. I don't have a studio audience just sitting here. For those of you at home, similar to Bradley that are shocked, this is something we add in post for fun and fanfare. It is not. We don't have a studio audience sitting around just yet. Just give it a couple more decades, and I'm sure we'll get one.
Okay. Well, I'll clap for myself. I'll give. There we go.
Nice. So first up, I gotta ask you the oldie but the goodie. Yep. What is your favorite dad joke?
All right. Here it is. What is the leading cause of dry skin?
I don't know.
Towels.
Oh god. Oh man. My mind was so blank. I just got hit over the head with that answer. Oh, that was terrific.
I gave
that was awesome.
I gave this joke earlier today, and my friend did not laugh at all. So I'm really glad it worked.
Is it part of it? So for the viewers at home that don't know, you are currently residing in Spain. Was it, maybe it doesn't translate that well in Spanish, or were you speaking to somebody in English?
It was my coworker at the school, so she is also from the United States and is doing the same work that I'm doing.
What?
Yeah,
man. You need to get a new coworker. That is, can't be American and not laugh at that great dad joke. That is despicable. Oh my gosh. What the hey?
Yeah, I don't know. I hit her with another one too, and she also didn't really think it was funny, so. I don't know, but I'm glad it worked. It worked here, so that's all.
Me too. Yeah. All right. What do you feel like is your favorite underutilized word?
All right. A word that I think is underutilized that really could more legs is worrywart.
Dig it.
Yeah, and someone who worries too much, which definitely been there in my life. And it's nice to have that little alliteration within the word.
Yeah. And also it's got almost like it's like on the verge of rhyming within itself. You got worry and wart. And it's got that OR sound. So it's almost like it's rhyming with itself as well as alliterating, which kind of adds that other fun amount of compunction there for me.
It just rolls
totally.
Off the tongue.
Also very much same with the whole worry wart thing. That is me to a T.
It's just a nice way to put it, as opposed to being chronically anxious.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds, you're like more accepting of your own condition when you're like, yeah, I'm a worrywart, as opposed to I have anxiety. It's like, yeah, like worrywart's a lot more. It's kind of like a Disney movie's pronunciation of a problem. You know, it kind of just like makes it sing-songy and like a little bit more fun. You know, it's still an issue. Like nobody wants to be a worrywart, but it's way better to be a worrywart than somebody with crippling anxiety. It's like one of these things is a lot more fun sounding and, rolls off the tongue a little bit more nicely.
Definitely.
Is there a movie that you will never skip when channel surfing, cruising through the old Netflix, or see a clip pop up on YouTube?
Okay, so I think this question is good because it's different than what's your favorite movie, Because my favorite movies, I definitely need to be in like right state of mind, and I really want to like sit and focus and see something new about it. For me, the answer to this question is got to be any of the Dark Knight trilogy, from Christopher Nolan, because these movies are just so entertaining, and it was really before all the superhero movies really took off in terms of like the Marvel movies. Not to say this is not a commentary on Marvel versus DC here. It's just that these trilogy of movies are just really like, when it's on, it's just like, oh man, like, yeah.
That's so awesome. I'm glad you realized the difference too. A lot of people, and I don't think it's different for everybody. I think for some people, their favorite movie is one that they can't turn off, and that's completely fine. But it's kind of like a square and a rectangle. Like every square is a rectangle. Not all rectangles are squares. It's kind of like that's the way I kind of look at that question. For some people, their favorite movie is one that they can never skip. But I'm glad that for you, it's not the same, because for me, it's not necessarily the same. There's a couple that fit that category that are my favorite movies, and there's a couple that they're just too stupid and fun. You know, like the movie Cranked is by no means my favorite movie, but it's really hard to look away from the trash fire that is that adrenaline-fueled like camp fest that I just kind of like dig. But it isn't a good movie or one that I particularly like, love. It's just absurdist fun.
What was the name of this movie?
Cranked or Crank? I don't know. It's the one with Jason Statham where it's like he has to constantly be upping his like heartbeat or something like that, otherwise he'll die. It's really hokey. And like second one takes it to the max. I think the second one's actually even better. It's just so stupid. He's constantly like, he goes over and has his heart jumpstart by like a car. Like it's just like, it's so absurdist, violent, schlocky fun. I would highly recommend it to anybody who loves a solid B movie and is a fan of Jason Statham. It's those at their best. I think the second one's actually, I think the first one's good, but the second one like really just like nailed it. It really got it. It's fantastic.
Reminds me of it's the bus movie where the bus can't slow down.
Speed?
Yeah.
Speed. Yeah. It's Speed personified, right? It's like they took the aspect of the bus and they're like, what if we made that a person? And just like, that's the movie. I think that's the way they pitched it. They're just like, all right, so you guys liked Speed, but we can't get Keanu because the Matrix took off too big. What about if he was British? What would you say, my friend, is your biggest everyday temptation?
Oh, okay. So I have chocolate, which I know you've already said is like the example for it, but it's definitely chocolate. I have a big sweet tooth. But I'll also say that naps, especially since living in Spain, the whole siesta. It's not necessarily like everyone takes a nap, but I've definitely been using that opportunity as a chance to take a nap. And since I'm not used to taking naps, there are definitely times where I sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and then it's like, whoa, where's sort of thing.
Is there a cross pollination on the napping and love of chocolate there?
Oh, I don't know.
No, there's not. You don't ever find yourself napping after just like enveloping like a whole entire large Willy Wonka bar.
No. I think they're separate temptations.
What is your favorite kind of chocolate? Like, do you mess with milk chocolate, or is that for scrubs? Dark chocolate only? Where are you at on the chocolate spectrum?
I'm no snob. I'll enjoy a good bar of milk chocolate. But yeah, of course I like good chocolate too. But I think I'll try to hit the maybe like 50-60% range of cacao. I don't know if that's a measure, but I know like 72% is a nice semi-sweet dark chocolate. And then some people, if they really like the bitter taste, they'll go up to like 90, 95, that sort of thing, I believe.
Do you have a preferred brand, or is it just whatever's around?
Whatever's around, but if I had to pick a brand, it would probably be Ghirardelli. Because they make them in those squares, and then it's like they put like caramel in it. But then I guess you're getting away from the dark. Well, like I said, I'm not so picky, but I know the Ghirardelli ones are really good. Yeah.
Have you ever had Ritter Sport?
No, I can't say I have.
It's super good. I don't know if it's easier or harder for you to get over there because I believe it's a German chocolate brand, but you can usually find them in Target in the US, and they come in these little 9x9 little square bricks that you can theoretically break and share with friends, but come on, nobody does that. Maybe it's 12 across. I don't know, but they are so darn tasty, and they come in a bunch of different little fun like flavor. I think they're predominantly milk chocolate. I think they have some dark ones, but they have like different fillings. They have like normal chocolate, milk chocolate. They've got one that has chocolate with cornflakes in it. It's Super, super good. It's like a high end crackle bar or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a crunch bar. I think
Crunch
crackle is
bar, yeah,
awful.
yeah. No, crunch. That's what I was definitely thinking of. Yeah.
I think they're I think they're both like the same sort of concept though.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I was definitely thinking of crunch. Thank you. But yeah, that's if you're looking to if you're a fan of the crunch bar, but you want to be you want to be able to twirl your mustache and adjust your monocle, definitely check out Rittersport. Growing up, did you have a favorite book?
Oh yeah, it was The Number Devil. Do you know this book?
I do not.
Okay,
That sounds awesome. Tell me more.
So, okay, if I remember correctly, The Number Devil is the protagonist. It has like a series of dreams, and each night he's visited by the Number Devil, and who explains to him different math concepts, starting out sort of simple and then advancing a little bit in complexity. And I'd seen it at my school where I teach. Right now I'm an English teaching assistant at a Spanish high school for the year, and they had a book fair recently, and they had The Number Devil in Spanish, and I regret not buying it because I really think that it was like, oh, I have the book in English, so I was like, oh, I don't need it. I'm in English back at home, but I think it would have been really neat to see how, like, because it's math. A lot of the book is sort of introducing these interesting math concepts to middle school age children, and I remember really enjoying that when I was in that middle school age. When I was growing up, my favorite book was Goodnight Moon, but it's sort of a very, very little kid's book.
That's cool. It sounds like a book that was written by somebody who's trying to teach their kid math, who was like a prolific reader but hated math, and so they tried to like do that like dog peanut butter medicine trick where they just like, oh yeah, here's like this thing you love, Fido, and this like trick them into having like their daily worm pill or whatever. It's like the same kind of. That's what that makes me immediately think of, is that this guy's like, I know you don't like math, but what about this book that just has math in it? It's like, okay, Dad. And it's like, read it. And they're like, aha, I taught you algebra.
That's kind of how it is.
Nailed it.
I'm thinking about it because it's like, yeah. It's like, at first it's just numbers, and then they add in like shapes, and it's just like pure mathematical concepts just introduced at a young age, which I really like that concept. And it was an engaging book, and I should really sit back down and read it again and see if I can pick up on.
Because you're having trouble with math?
No, I don't use math all that often, but just see if there are any if I can pick up on more of like the craft of the book, or, like,
yeah,
yeah.
That's so cool. All right. God forbid, but if you had to evacuate your house, what's the first non-living thing you'd grab and rescue to safety?
I don't have that many possessions. I'm looking around my room right now. There's something that it's like really calls my eye as to something that I need. Oh man. I think I might have to say the same answer that many of your other guests have given. I think you know what's coming. Maybe frequent listeners.
I'm guessing too. Fleece jacket. Am I right?
Oh, I was going to say magic cards, but I would definitely take the fleece jacket. Yeah, that sounds much better. I do have a nice jacket over here. I should take that.
I love it when a joke turns into reality. And he's like, make a joke and it like spawns something. It's so funny.
That's way better than what I was saying. I do have a nice fleece jacket in here. I should definitely get that.
You know what? I would like to keep this one.
No magic cards. Well, I don't have any surplus cards. So for me, no magic card is irreplaceable. You can always spend money, but to find a nice jacket that really fits you and is comfortable, that it can't just.
Especially if you have like memories of somebody getting it, making it, or like you wore it to a concert or whatever.
Yeah, so true.
That's so awesome.
But so not the jacket that I have here, but some of the jackets that I have back at home are like hand-me-downs from my grandfather. So I would definitely make sure to take those.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Definitely.
All right.
Thank you. Now I
know. Yeah. Hilarity is helpful, folks. That's proof. All right. So do me a favor. Clear your mind.
Yep.
Now, what comes to mind when I say underrated?
The only thing coming to mind right now is baseball, because I'm a big baseball fan, and I think it's underrated. It's not really part of the popular culture anymore, like it was back in the day. And I don't know. I just really there's no other sport that's I think some of the things it's criticized for are actually some of its bigger strengths. There's a lot of criticism that it's kind of slow, it's kind of boring, but I feel like the game action itself doesn't necessarily have to be the central focal point, but rather your experience in the stadium or watching with other people, and just as an opportunity, a venue to spend quality time. And baseball is interesting, unique from other sports in that it doesn't have a clock, so it's an indeterminate amount of time the game could last. Technically, it can go forever if neither team scores any runs. So,
isn't there a game that actually was put on hold because it went so long that they brought it back the next day or something like that?
Sometimes
I feel like there's like I heard about a game. Maybe it wasn't this sport. Maybe it was like cricket or something that is like relatively similar. That it went so long, and it's like it either has happened like once or like 2 or 3 times where it went so long that they're like, all right, this is ridiculous, and like both managers are like, you want to just put this on pause and come back tomorrow or something like that. I had to like come back and finish it.
This would happen more frequently before like overhead lighting was a thing, like in the 1930s. But I think maybe there's an example in the minor leagues where a game went 33 innings and had to be suspended at inning 32 because it was like 4 in the morning. And actually, it was between Pawtucket and another team, and future Hall of Fame player Wade Boggs was on one of the teams. And that's all I know about this game. I don't remember.
That's so cool.
But it was in the minor leagues, and so at the game, like they maybe had it was minor league, so not like the most well attended. Maybe they had 5,000 people at this first pitch. By the inning 32, they maybe had like I don't know 20 people left who stuck it out the whole time.
That's so rad.
And I think, but when they got back, they didn't immediately restart the game. The next day, it was maybe a few weeks later, and so everyone, to see the end of this 30-something inning game, they brought everyone, the stadium sold out, all the media was there, and then the game ended after 30 minutes because the team just scored in the first inning that they started back up.
So I'm doing a little bit of quick research. On May 1st, 1920, Brooklyn Robins and the Boston Braves played a 26-inning game. It was tied 1-1. After 26 innings, the game was called due to darkness.
Yep.
And that's just how the game ended. They just said, screw it, it's a tie? Oh, that's hilarious. They didn't go, we'll come back tomorrow. There's whatever.
Games did end in ties, back in those days. Well, I think, they had to travel on train to get to the next game or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. They had to travel on train. They weren't paid that much. Yeah. A lot of these are just, I'm looking this up. A lot of these are just ties. There's one that was in 2008. Okay, I'm not going to, this is a long list. I'll have to send it to you, babe. I'm not going to read through it.
No problem.
That's so cool, though. I love the idea, especially considering that it's that's a deep dive, the Wade Boggs. It's so dope, though. Just we're tired, we can't see shit anymore. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. It's it makes sense, and it's so funny that there would be a thing to do. It's so amazing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Well, I don't know if I would stay all 33 innings for a game, but I just kind of like how baseball is sort of, you know, you don't.
It's like more of a pastime and less of a game, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's an event that you are, a semi participant in. You're watching, but also you're just like, hanging with your buds or your family or, whoever, usually having a like drink or libation of some sort. And just, it's not like basketball or hockey or the NFL where there's like action all the time. There's a lot of like lulls, which is kind of like, it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, is kind of like the beauty of the game to you, and the misunderstanding by a lot of people is that they're expecting like action, action, action. When they don't get it, they're annoyed. It's like you're kind of, it sounds like you think they're appreciating the game incorrectly.
yeah. Well, I don't think there's any one right way to
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate the game, but I do think that baseball is sort of unique in this way, where it's more of a experience, not so.
It's kind of like,
yeah,
it's kind of like, it's like, yeah, it's like golf or like watching. It's like baseball's become a mildly more obscure sport, and there's like weird rules and like a lot of lulls, and it does take an appreciation and like a love for the game and an interest in the minutia to like kind of keep attention. It's kind of like golf, or I would even say like kind of like Magic, where the only people that are going to appreciate it are ones that have either studied the game and or played the game, and it's like more of a hangout and less of a viewing experience. Does that sounds right to you?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
I totally, I understand where you're coming from. That being said, the amount of beverages I will have to consume to watch a game of baseball, or at least be in the room while it's happening, is quite an amount. And there definitely needs to be somebody else with me there. Have you ever watched that? I think that's like one of the things that does it for me, and why I just like kind of don't watch baseball anymore, is because I live by myself. Will you sit and watch baseball if you're alone, or is that like much harder as opposed to like watching with somebody else? Like, what's the dynamic change there for you?
I would sit and watch baseball alone, but it would have to be a game that I'm interested in. Normally, it would be a team, like my favorite team playing, or a team that I have some sort of interest in, whether for like a player that I like, or I don't know, like if there's a player who I like who I know. It's happened that three people who went to my high school and graduated like the year above me and the year below me are now playing in the major leagues. So
wow,
yeah, that's
so cool.
Yeah. So well, go ahead.
Would you? So on the flip side of that, if it was a team that you had no interest in, how like I'm gonna let me see if my surmising is correct. I would surmise that on the flip side of this, you would watch with friends or family, unless you had like important stuff to do, like work or school or whatever. You would be just as happy to watch a team that you kind of didn't care about, as long as there were people there to watch it with and just kind of have that time spent.
Yeah, I think
is that fairly accurate?
I think that is accurate, because I don't watch all that much television. Or I will say I didn't until I moved here, because my roommate and we like watching television and movies together. Yeah, it's been really fun, and he's Spanish, and it's been nice, because what we'll do is for some shows, with like The Office, for example, we're watching it in English with Spanish subtitles, and for the Marvel movies that we watch, we're watching them in Spanish with English subtitles. So for each of us, there's a bit of a experience. We both get to experience it, but sometimes it's in my native language, sometimes it's in his native language. But definitely the shared viewing experience together makes watching TV, movies, baseball, for example, just more interesting. Because when I was living like more independently by myself, or with roommates who I wouldn't, like my mom, or like with roommates who I didn't really watch TV with, then yeah, I wouldn't say I'd watch TV all that often, because it just it's much more interesting to do with other people, to have that shared experience.
Oh yeah. You definitely, that's something that as much as it is a singular activity and that you're watching something, there is something about that shared experience of watching something at the same time as somebody else in the same room that it just makes it better. It is kind of one of those, it's like salt on food. You can't see it, but you can feel the difference, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's like the difference between salt on something is like in the eating of it, not in like the visual presentation. It's like I couldn't tell you which dish you salted and which dish you didn't if you presented them side by side, but in tasting it, I can tell you the difference. It's like when you watch something with yourself versus or with somebody else versus by yourself, it's like so different. Even though it feels like looking at it from the top down, it's like there is no difference. You know, you're just ingesting it. There's just somebody else there, especially like doing it in the cinema is the weirdest one when, you know, it's kind of like bad form to like talk or, you know, chat during it or in any way, you know, kind of interact with the people you're sitting around. It still makes all the difference in the world between watching it there versus watching it at home or what, you know, watching it in a theater by yourself versus watching it in a theater with people. It makes a difference, even though technically it doesn't. It's so wild to me. It's one of those like cool, I don't know. Just I don't know how to like encapsulate that into any kind of word. It's just so cool.
I agree. I don't think there's a word for it either, but I have that feeling from the cinema too. Well, I don't know spoilers for Spider-Man, but I was
no spoiling. No spoiling.
Never mind.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Nothing happened. Don't worry about it.
It was just a movie with a guy and a thing.
But I will say, having the audience, even though we didn't speak words, but having that energy, watching together, for me, added a lot to the experience.
Totally. That's so cool. What would you say is your favorite industry secret or term that's only used in your line of work?
All right. So, this is going to be a bit of previews for my my passion. And if you look closely at soccer referees, there will be normally 3 main soccer referees. If you're watching on television, if you're watching like La Liga, the Premier League, MLS, there will be more than 3 referees. There'll be a 4th official, but generally there are 3 referees. There's one in the center who has the whistle, and then there are 2 with the flags on each side. You can sometimes hear them be called linesmen. This is not really the technical term. They're called assistant referees. And normally they won't do these hand signals that we use at the lower levels because they are in constant radio communication with each other over like Bluetooth, basically. They'll have they'll speak to each other, so they don't really need to do the hand signals system. But if one of the assistant referees, the one with the flag, recommends to the center referee that a player should receive a yellow card or a red card, these are like punishments given to players. A yellow card is a formal warning, and a red card is an expulsion. So it's very serious if the player receives a red card. They will, if it's recommending a yellow card, the assistant will make eye contact with the center referee and then put their hand over their heart to recommend a yellow card. And if they're recommending a red card, they'll put their hand on their back pocket. These are the traditional symbols, but
they will slap that as.
It's like a tat. I mean, never thought of it.
Wham!
Not like no, it's just like it's like a little tag, guess. But these are like the typical symbols. But every game before the game, you have a pre-game conference. So if the center referee wants to change the symbols, they can do that. But these are like the standard symbols. So if you're watching, you can sort of pick up on these secret gestures that the referees do to each other.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But, and of course, like all the flag movements mean something too, but those are sort of like publicly out in the world. But I figured I could tell a little referee secret. This actually
That's so awesome.
This actually happened in a game where I was saw that I was doing the gesture and was like, ref, he wants, give him a yellow. Your center thinks he should your assistant thinks he should get a yellow. And it was a little awkward because it's like, oh, he knows too much. So don't use your knowledge for good and not to make the referee's job harder.
Is there a piece of advice you've been told over the years that has made the biggest impact, or that you find yourself pondering even to this day?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I played chess a lot. I learned when I was pretty young, and I played a lot when I was in middle school and even through to high school. I played on the school's team, and the advice that stuck with me more than, any strategies or tactics from the game was never resign. Now, to resign is to give up, right? And obviously, at the top levels of chess, the grandmasters resign all the time as a sign of respect to their opponent. But when you're at the level that I was at, when you're a kid, there's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes. Chess is very difficult to play accurately, and you're going to mess up all the time. Even the best players will make mistakes frequently, and the message that to not resign basically is that even if if you're losing by a lot, you're 99% of the time you're going to lose the game, right? But it's being able to keep going in this situation, and also to be sort of comfortable when you're in this hopeless losing position, that that you're the way you think about the game has changed a little bit. You're going to try to play tricks and to trick your opponent basically into trapping your king without delivering checkmate. Being able to always looking for like a positive aspect in very bleak situations, I think, is something that you can carry with that. And also in the inverse side, when you do have that very winning position, it's important not to let up, not to get complacent, because your opponent is still fighting, and so you gotta show them the respect to deliver that they're going to be trying to do tricks, that you need to still be making the best move that you can each time.
So when you say you got told this lesson, are you sure you just didn't watch Galaxy Quest?
I'm pretty sure I
never give up, never surrender. All right, that's a joke for me. No, I totally, absolutely understand, and like that's another one of those. That one got integrated to me via Magic, but it's such a great life lesson, not only in like gaming, but also like strategic thinking, and like as like a kind of, it's an interesting way of accepting what is likely to transpire while still allowing you to like kind of push forward. Like when you're likely to lose your job or something like that, that's like one of those places that you can, utilize this. Like, okay, I'm going to lose my job. And it allows you to kind of like, what else can I do to either make that not happen, or what can I do to benefit myself before I lose my job? Like maybe I'll go to the health clinic, or I'll go to the hospital and get a bunch of like stuff done that either I've been putting off, or probably, is good preventative care to look into. Like maybe I'll get a body scan. Maybe I'll get, checked for this other stuff that I was, kind of whatever on. But since I'm about to probably lose my job, and ergo healthcare in this country, like being able to utilize, like finding value areas, or looking for like ways that you can maybe not make that happen. Like the whole idea of like it sounded like the way you're talking about it was like baiting your opponent into making a mistake, or giving them an opportunity to make an error and like capitalize on that, is like one of the coolest areas of game theory, where when left to, you have to get scrappy when your back's against a wall and try to find opportunity. But like you were saying, when you're the person winning, that's something to also, by having lost, put yourself in those shoes and have attempted that. That way, when you're winning, you also not only are ready for those tricks, you are aware that those tricks exist. Because like if you don't do that, if that's something that you're not used to experiencing, having tried yourself, it's so hard to understand the circumstance that your opponent's in if you're just always conceding when it's very likely that you've lost.
Yeah. Chess has a sort of unique feature where there's a chess clock, and so if your time reaches 0, no matter what the situation is on the board, that player loses if you run out of time. Magic is a little different because both players sort of have the same shared time pool, and so
in paper,
right. So that can get a little, I don't know, there's definitely games I've resigned in Magic that I thought I could keep fighting, but because of the element of time that I did give up on. I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite, but
I mean, it's different. There's similarities, but it is different enough that I don't think that makes you a hypocrite. I'm not going to be the one to judge you in such a fashion. But I do think it is a really important and valuable lesson, and like one of those ones that I too learned. And yeah, it does. Would highly recommend to anybody out there listening that hasn't tried that in a game where you are likely to lose. If all that it's going to do is cost you maybe a little bit of shame and some time, the valuable lessons you will learn and the way it will change your game for the better, whether it's in chess, whether it's in Magic, whether it's in something else, of, it's kind of like that Star Trek thing, like the what's it, the Masashi Karu or whatever, like that, like the unwinnable game where all you can do is lose less. It's like the reason it's taught, from what I remember of the explanation, to commanders in Star Trek is so that like it helps Starfleet decipher whether, like, what kind of captain you would be under those circumstances and whether they want to appoint you as one. And like it's the kind of like same thing in a gaming scenario. Like it helps better you as a person to to play through when you know you're going to lose is so disheartening. It's so hard to keep your head on a swivel that practicing that more and more and effectively using that mental muscle of acceptance and pushing through and trying to find victory, or, trying to find a draw within legal means and stuff like that. And giving, and like you're saying, one of the most important things is that people aren't infallible. People will just make mistakes. You can, if you have the perspective, you can look back at your own life and see so many of the times that you've made a mistake, if you're willing to kind of look at it, as opposed to assuming you're perfect. There's so many games of Magic I look back on and I'm just like, yeah, I was a freaking idiot. Just missed, so many things that were free, missed, the most obvious lines because, my brain was somewhere else for a minute, or just, I, shorted and had to reboot and just didn't see it. It's like people make mistakes, whether they are, in game, out of game, whatever. And so to concede is to give your opponent too much credit in gaming, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. You said it. Spot on.
Thanks. So, given the opportunity, what is your favorite personal anecdote to tell?
Okay. This is not so much of an anecdote, so much as a fun fact, but I think it does lead itself to anecdotes. It's that my dog has over 20,000 followers on Instagram.
Okay.
I don't run the account. It's my mom, but this is definitely my favorite thing to pull out at two truths and a lie sort of activities, because then I get to talk about my dog. Yeah, the Instagram, if you want to. Actually, yeah, you instead of my. I'd rather plug my dog's Instagram than my own social medias.
What is your dog's Instagram?
It's at Apple_the golden. She's a golden retriever, and she does. My mom does so much with that dog. She she does like therapy work. She does agility. Yeah, therapy. Agility.
That's so sweet.
Just all sorts of things like nose work. This is where the dog will like go around and try to like they give a dog a smell, and then they hide that smell somewhere out in like a field, and it's up to the dog and the owner to like go around and figure out where the smell is coming from, and like how does the dog communicate that they found the smell to the owner. That's what they work on. So
they don't just point at it and go, "Look, I found it, Susie."
If dogs could talk, I think that it would the sport would be very different.
It's probably a great like ending, like lightning round question. Like, if dogs could talk, would you want to hear what they have to say?
Oh, that is a good one.
All right, well, we'll move on to the next one. If you don't have a different one, or you can reuse that one if you'd like. What is your favorite little known fact?
Oh, you said it differently. Okay.
So it used to be favorite little known factoid, but I recently got corrected and informed that factoid, the number one definition, is something that is not necessarily true. And it's kind of, I'm not looking to put out, kind of poppy, like, ooh, isn't this interesting, but isn't necessarily true. I want the truth to shine through in here. It's definitely whatever fun fact somebody's sharing. I want it to be indeed a fact, not a factoid. So
my factoid was going to be that the word factoid is
Well, you clearly are not up on episodes, my friend. That is, I think, now 3 episodes as of when this goes up. It'll be like 4 episodes back that Alexander corrected me and blew my mind.
Well, congrats to Alexander, because they definitely took what I wanted to say. All right. What can I do? What can I share? I feel like I know a lot of facts, but just having one at the top of my head is now it's a little difficult, and it's also funny that you changed. I was hoping to be the one to get you to change that. Well, I don't know. I was gonna, as an example of what a factoid was, for example, during the time of Christopher Columbus, it is commonly said that the other members of the Catholic King's Court thought that the Earth was flat, but this is not the case. Everyone at this time knew that the Earth was round. Yeah. Sorry to any flat earthers who may be listening, but they all knew the Earth was round. The dispute was over how large the Earth was, and Columbus's estimations underestimated how large the Earth actually was. So that was sort of where the disagreement was coming over.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know if that is an interesting fact.
I think that's an interesting fact. Yeah.
But the factoid, which means like a lie, a small lie that's often repeated as if it were true, was that the Earth was flat, or that they thought that the Earth was flat during the time, and Christopher Columbus was like, "No, I know it's round. You gotta believe me."
Yeah, I think the Greeks kind of proved with like math and stars or something like that hundreds of years before that it was round. Like it was like, I feel like I remember reading that like Greek philosophers and mathematicians and stuff like that had figured out a while before that it was round. I think like the moving census at that point that was problematic and got overturned a bit later was that we thought we were the center of the universe, right? Like that's why Galileo died, is because he was like, no, we revolve around the sun, not the sun revolves around us. And they were like, he's crazy. There can't be other shit out there. It's only us.
It's like,
at
Galileo,
the time
Copernicus and Kepler, I think. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know which. The church is still there trying to.
They're just like, no, we're still the center of the universe. How dare you? I will beep my car horn at you, sir.
No.
See?
I can't believe
Woo! Can't keep him down.
No.
Just keep him out. That's.
Wow. This is not normally a noisy neighborhood, but for whatever reason, someone's just gotta.
I guess we should move on from the Galileo controversy.
Yeah, hopefully that'll settle them down out there.
I'll silence them. So
Yeah.
Interesting. Since you are in Spain, I don't know if this is a question that's come up or or anything like that. But what is the kind of, in your experience, the Spanish take on Christopher Columbus? How is he celebrated over there, or is he celebrated?
I have not asked about it. I've seen. So in Sevilla, where I'm at, there is a monument to him that I think is celebratory. But I've also seen monuments or like memorials that are more critical of the sort of the genocide that resulted from colonization. So I've never really asked like, what is the take on it? But there is a lot
What's up with that Christopher Columbus?
I guess I should, I think it's hard to like, because I think if I asked my coworkers, like the teachers at my school, they would probably have a more nuanced take than if I asked more of the general public. Something that I have noticed is that here in Sevilla, they celebrate Rodrigo de Triana, who was the first person who spotted land from the ship. So, and there's a whole neighborhood named after Triana. Like Triana is the neighborhood very close to Sevilla. I spent quite a bit of time there in that neighborhood, and it's named after him basically. So
that's so dope.
Yeah, I think he is maybe looked on more favorably. I don't actually know, what sort of involvement he had in the subsequent colonialism, but he's celebrated sort of
just a dude with a spyglass.
Basically, that's how he's depicted on the crow's nest of the ship looking out.
So, fill in the blank for me. This weekend was so great. I spent 13 hours.
13 hours. It can only be one thing during this 13 hours. Like, that I did.
Yeah.
Okay. 13 hours with my friends. That's how I would.
I mean, I'm happy that's a good answer, but also boo.
Well, and then
it's so wholesome. How are we supposed to
criticize?
How are we supposed to? No, how are we supposed to relate to you when you're being so wholesome? We're out here, just a bunch of degenerates listening over the earphones. This guy's being all wholesome. Ugh.
I think that's spending time with friends.
That's really.
But maybe,
really sweet.
maybe
What would you want to be doing with friends? Would you want to be just watching baseball game after baseball game?
No.
Wait, is there a shared activity that you would prefer to be doing with your friends over that time, or is it just the kind of collection and just company?
It doesn't have to be the same thing, but I definitely like the variety that sometimes it'll be like we'll go to get dinner and get drinks. Other times it'll be like, oh, someone is like, I've seen this really cool event happening in the city, and do you all want to come with? And it's like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, that's definitely something so awesome. I've really liked about living here in Spain, is that I've found these communities that I get to spend time with people doing that.
That's so beautiful, man. Can you think of the first? This one's a bit of a weird one, so if it doesn't make sense to you, I can give you an example. Okay. But can you think of the first or most impactful memory of when you realized you weren't so alone in your struggle, or more like everybody else than you had previously realized? My example of this is, for the longest time, I thought I was alone in my kind of difficulty doing any kind of public speaking, whether it was, reading something from a paper, doing stand-up, anything like that. Anytime I was, even like the small, we're talking like 10, 20 people, standing up in front of them and saying something that I was told to say, saying something I had written, talking off the top of my head. always, I could feel my throat closing up. I would sit down, my heart rate would be considerably elevated, and I thought there was something wrong with me. I was like, wow, what is wrong with me as a human being? And then I talked to my brother who, thankfully knows things. And he was like, yeah, dude, that's the number one fear in this country before death. People would rather die, in theory, than public speak. He's like, you're not alone. That's a human problem. That is, everybody has that problem. If, in fact, it would be weird if you didn't. And it was like, oh. And it just it brought so much. It didn't make it get super easier, but it did make every time that happened, it was like, oh, okay, this is something everybody's going through. You're fine. You're not weird. It just, this thing sucks. And if you want to get good at it, keep doing it. And, if you don't, stop doing it. But it's not something to be embarrassed about or, feel like you're shitty. It's a part of it.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know if I have such a concrete example, but I guess I'll just start talking, and if I hope I get to the point. But
that's my way of making things happen. Open mouth, hope for the best.
Just start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going to end up. I think something that I've learned more recently is that I shouldn't feel afraid to talk or say out loud the things that, if I'm experiencing a difficult time. And this is still, it's not something that I struggle with, I think. But I can just think back to when you were talking about the example when we were talking about never resign, right? And there you were talking about how, if you're getting fired, how can you make the best of the situation? And that definitely resonated with me because there was a time when I was essentially fired from a position, a job that I had. And after the aftermath, it was very difficult, because I think it goes without saying, but something that I wish, looking back, that I'd done was talk to my parents sooner about the difficulties that I was having, not only with being fired, but with the job and actually with both, and being able to count on them as a source of advice. I think I definitely, in the aftermath, they were very helpful and supportive for me, but I was just so scared to reach out to them because I didn't want them to know or to think that I was failing or to be a failure. And but that wasn't the first time I had difficulties. There was a college class that I had failed, and luckily I was able to retake and do much better the second time. It was accounting 2, and I was very happy that I did much better the second time. But when I was doing badly the first time, that was a difficult time, and I didn't talk to my parents about it until it was too late, and I had failed the class basically, and just being able to loop them in, I think. So if I had to say, I don't think there was any one instance, but a way that you can, if this works for you, is to, not necessarily your parents, but for me, my parents have been helpful, but just don't be afraid to reach out or to speak out to trusted people if you're going through a difficult thing, because even just sharing it with someone, they can sort of understand your situation more, understand where you're coming from, and generally it's more helpful. It's still, I'm saying it now, I don't think, listener, that I have it all figured out, because this is definitely something that I still struggle with, but I do try to make it an intention that if things are difficult, if I'm to let my loved ones know about it,
Well, it sounds like kind of the idea, if I'm hearing you correctly, is don't be ashamed of your circumstance, Everybody's gone through this. Talk to people so that you can get help. And I mean, this proliferates into so much of life, but like the kind of hurdle that you've since jumped for the most part, it sounds like, or done a better job at jumping, is the idea of like when a problem comes into your life and you don't know what to do and or you're scared, is to talk to somebody else about it to get the help you need, whether it's advice, whether it's, you know, financial, strategic, or just feeling like you're not going through it alone, because going through a problem alone is horrifying and terrifying. It's like, it's one of the worst experiences is when you think you're the only person that's had this happen or the only person this is happening to. It's like, I mean, that's what makes some people, you know, kind of fly off the handle, is when they feel like they're being targeted or when they feel like they're being isolated and picked on. It's like when that becomes no longer the thing and that you like see that this is happening to other people, either it becomes a problem that needs to be dealt with, or, you know, it's something that you guys can go through together if it's like, you know, a personal crisis or whatever like that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Just having that support has when it's gotten bad, you know, it's been difficult. Having that support has made it easier. And looking back for, you know, when I got fired and when I failed the class, like looking back, if I had reached out to in this case, my parents, but if I'd reached out sooner, I think it could have mitigated a lot of the really negative things that have happened through that.
Mm-hmm. Is there a moment that you look back on in your life that fills your chest with pride or brings a tear of joy to your eye?
It sounds so silly, but the time when my school's chess team won the state tournament was...
Dude! That's so awesome!
Yeah, it was like high school chess in Wisconsin, and our school hadn't won in 10 or 15 years, and for like 8 years in a row, this one school from Madison had always won. And in the first round, we played against like a smaller school, and our team loses, and so we're like, oh man, we blew our shot. You know, yeah. We were like despondent. I mean, not so despondent, but we were like, it's over. This year never happened, you know, for our school's chess team. And then the next games we won, and we kept winning, and then we play against the team from Madison, and we beat them, and all of a sudden it like comes down to like the last round, and it comes down to like tiebreakers from it's like two teams that had already been eliminated, right? But they're playing it out, and the tiebreakers break our way. The team that we needed to win wins, and that means we're the state champions. And it was
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Were you? And you were a player on that team at the time, or were you just a rooting, you know, fan?
I was a player on the team. The way it works is...
That's so awesome.
Yeah, there are 5 fans. I don't know if he would travel to the state tournament just to cheer people on, but...
I mean, if you were from the Madison school, you probably would. You're just gonna watch them, like, very likely gonna go watch your team win if you're a big chess fan. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. The way it worked is like each team had 5 players, and so you would have your team's best player play the other team's best player, and so on. And so I was the 3rd best player of our team, and I played against the other 3rd best players. And so sometimes I would win. Like in the first round, I won my game, but then the other players lost, and so we did.
3 of your players lost, so you guys lost?
Right. And it worked out. I don't know, but even more than just the like winning the trophy was like we had a lot of good camaraderie on that team, and it's like this was my freshman year of high school, so you know, getting to like know older students through the chess team like definitely helped me fit in and feel more comfortable socially. And then I lived in Wisconsin for my freshman and sophomore years of high school, my first and second years, and then I moved to Los Angeles for my 3rd and 4th years of high school, and so I kind of fell out of touch with the chess players. years.
Oh.
But recently, during the pandemic, actually, we started up we got back in touch, and we've started to play chess together online. And so,
oh, that's so dope.
Yeah, it's been really nice, and definitely everyone, when we get together, we do all have very fond memories of that time when we won the state tournament.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Having that, like, that's such like a great feel good like PG movie that I would that I would watch. Is, you know, like, they came from nowhere, they never had a chance, they started with their backs against the wall, and they were victorious. It's such a great underdog story. You love it. Oh man. Yeah. All right. Well, lastly, before we throw it to commercial break, if you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
The song that I would love them to listen to is called Take the Canyon by Kickball. It is about driving in Los Angeles, and specifically how you should get to the valley. The reason why I picked the song, not only for the amazing theme, but also is because it is my brother's band. My younger brother, Sam, is the lead singer, and he is in the band with his friend Jeffrey. And it's, I don't know, I actually think it's a really good song too. So give it a listen.
You hear that, Jeffrey? Your brother Bradley thinks it's a great song.
No, Sam's my brother. Jeffrey's his friend.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
You hear that, Sam? Bradley thinks it's a good song. You did it. You're a man in his eyes. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we're going to throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy Take the Canyon by Kickball. Or if you want to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Beefs podcast, Song Rex. Long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Do you ever find yourself sitting around with an emptiness inside your soul, or larger than preferred vacuous space? Would you like to change that? I thought so. Now introducing Stuff. For when you have nothing to do but important things. Stuff. For when you're lacking personality and intrigue. Stuff. When the world has taken a pickaxe-sized chunk out of your heart. Stuff. And if Stuff no longer fulfills these needs, please don't hesitate to look into our life-enhancing product, Addiction. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Bradley. So, Bradley, what is your passion that you brought with you today?
My passion, I've referenced it a little bit before, is soccer refereeing. But I guess I could open it up to youth sports officiating in general.
Ooh. Yes. It sounds so it sounds so big and so much gravitas. Youth. Say that again?
Youth sports officiating.
Ooh, I'm getting chills.
It's not, I gotta be honest, it's can be a little difficult sometimes. If
parents.
yes, parents. That's the most difficult. Parents, the coaches sometimes. But I've been soccer refereeing for, I guess this is going to be my 10th year of it. I started in 2012 in June. And I had sort of picked up my interest in soccer after the 2010 World Cup. And I hadn't really played. I played like when I was 8 years old, you know, and then I didn't like organized sports anymore. So as a player, so I stopped. So after the 2010 World Cup, I wanted to get into soccer more. And since I didn't play, I thought, maybe I can referee. And so I studied. I was watching a lot of soccer during that time, and I learned the rules for the test. And they also do an introductory class that they give you to become a referee. And I took it, I did it, and then I became a referee. And it's just something that I've always sort of done since then.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So why did you want to? Why didn't you want to try doing the sport? Is it because you felt like it was too far past you at that point? Do you not enjoy doing physical sports at a kind of more competitive level? What was it that like made you lean into officiating, or do you just enjoy the idea of like kind of making sure everything is on the like the straight and narrow, so to speak?
I think for soccer specifically, it was because it was a little too late to pick up the skills necessary to compete at the level. But I don't, cause I don't really, I don't referee any other. I only referee soccer really, and I don't know why that is. Like, I guess I could have learned how to referee baseball, for instance, because I do like baseball, but or I guess umpire baseball. They're umpires, but
and then you get to wear the fancy suit,
with the face mask and the pads,
the bulletproof vest,
basically. I don't know what gravitated me towards soccer as opposed to anything else. It's just the confluence of things, but it's just this skill that I have, and so as I graduated from high school, I had this skill to referee, so I was able to do it to make a little extra money at my university, and then when I was living on my own, there are a lot of adult soccer leagues that I was able to find in New Orleans, Washington, D.C., where I could make a little extra money that way too.
That's so cool. So you get into this in 2010. How old are you at the time?
I was in 2012 and I was about like 17, 18. Yeah.
Okay. So 17, 18. And how difficult, did you know any of the rules of like soccer at that time, or did you have to like basically learn them all from scratch?
Soccer's not all that conceptually difficult, so I had a general understanding of how it was played. I didn't know the intricacies of what I now know to be the laws of the game, but I felt like if you're interested in refereeing, they give you for me it was a whole introductory. It was like a 2-day course basically, where they sort of reviewed and taught you the laws, but it's not quite. You don't have to like have played to be a referee, for example. But knowing what the game is supposed to look like is definitely helpful.
So you get into doing that. How did do you remember how your first game went as a ref? Did you make any bad calls? Were you like, did you feel inept, or did it like just come like riding a bike after, a year off or something like that?
So my first games were not so difficult because you start out as the assistant referee with the flags. So you
putting the hand over your heart, slapping your butt. Yeah, okay.
That doesn't come up all that often. Mostly it's pointing when the ball goes out of play. You point the flag in the direction that will go. So that's the main thing, as well as calling the offside call where you line up. I don't want to explain the whole rule here because it's sort of the most it's the most complicated for soccer.
Yeah,
I would say.
It also does a lot better with visuals, and this is an auditory only medium.
Right.
So
basically, you line up with your job as the one with the flag is to where you position yourself is based on where one of the defending players is, and if the ball is passed to an attacking player, and if they are past the defending player, then you put your flag up. This is very simplified, but basically, they've committed the offside infraction, and so it gives possession to the defending team. And this is the call that is seen as most difficult for the assistants to make because you have to be looking at essentially 3 places at once and making a call based on a snapshot that you take of that moment. You imagine it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, and usually pisses off one whole team vigorously.
Yeah. So that is sort of even though this is that's not an easy call to make. It'll maybe happen where it's close, like once per game.
Okay.
So not something that's so preoccupying, but it's a good spot for a new referee to begin in. And so my first games, those went okay, but the first time I was ever a center referee was much more difficult was with an adult league, and so I was sort of by myself as the center referee, and the game had to be suspended essentially because the players were not. I didn't do a good job of managing the player. Well, it's a little bit of both. I didn't do a good job of managing sort of the personalities of the players, and the players were also sort of a little aggressive and a little. They realized that since I was a new referee, they could take advantage, and so.
Oh, that's lame.
Yeah. But I definitely remember that as definitely a difficult instance that happened. But in the scheme of things, it was a good learning experience because, can only go up from there.
How much running, like, have you ever tracked how much running you do as a ref? Like how many steps you get in or how many like miles you traverse, like reffing like a game?
I don't have a good, I don't like carry my phone with me when I referee, and my watch is a little old fashioned. It doesn't really have all the running detail, it's not a smartwatch. So I've never really tracked, but at the top levels, where the game is 90 minutes long, the referees run almost as much as the player who runs the most, which is about 6 miles.
Holy crap.
Yeah, over 90 minutes. 6 miles. So it can be a lot, but that's just for the referee in the center. The referees on the sidelines normally don't have to run as much as the referee in the center.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about reffing soccer, especially for youths, is by the wider world?
I don't know if it's a misconception, but I definitely think that the treatment from spectators, from coaches, could be, it's tough. They're in the moment, and they're also it's their kids, so it's how parents are. But I think they just, the referees for your kids' games are not trying to screw over your kid. They're not trying to
they're not trying to rob them of a victory.
Yes, right. Yeah. They're just doing the best they can. They're human beings, and doing. This is the point that I really wanted to make, is that right now there's a serious lack of officials. There's a shortage of officials, especially in Southern California. At least on the soccer side, there may be like they would need 2,000 more referees to meet the demand that there currently exists for soccer. Yeah.
Holy cow!
I know. That made me feel a little bad that I was moving out of where I was living in Los Angeles.
They need 2001 now.
Yeah, and just without the referees, there's not really a game, and I don't want to say like every referee is like perfect, right? We're not perfect, and there's definitely instances where the referee will mess up, make a mistake, and do something bad, like cost your, like make a bad call, right? But in the greater scheme of things, that without referees, you can't have these level of organized youth sports that we like and we want to have. I don't know the research, right? But I think it's widely agreed. I'm sure there's research on it, but it's widely agreed that youth sports have positive outcomes for children. To be working, they get to be social, they interact with their friends, and learn skills like good sportsmanship and be athletic. So I think it's widely agreed that youth sports have good outcomes, but without officials, you can't have their games won't be able to be played. And I think maybe if I had to pick like one misconception, it would be that it would just be that there's it's almost like a crisis, you could say, of how few, like the lack, the deficit of referees that we have right now. I only know for the soccer, but I'm sure other sports have this issue too. So
Yeah.
if youth sports, I think parents and coaches have a lot of passion, and certainly they're needed. But if they learned how to referee, this would both help solve the issue that this lack of officials that we have, but also help them understand a little bit more what it is like to be a referee, and sort of come with that understanding of, all right, these are humans, these are people who are doing, especially at the youth level, this is as a hobby that they're doing on their weekends. They don't need, they don't need such to be yelled at, to be called names and negative things. So.
They are bringing a net positive, even if it doesn't seem like it. Like, if they're not there, not only could it not run, but even if it could run, it is being run better now because they are there, even if they are doing a less than perfect job, which is your opinion. Yeah. So I'm gonna throw you a bit of a curveball here.
Okay.
I have, this is a new question that popped in my head. It may or may not work, but we're gonna try this out.
Let's give it a shot.
If you could, in one word or in a sentence, in just an idea, what is it that brings you back and like keeps you coming to being a referee? What is is there any one thing, an idea, a sound, a feeling, something that kind of personifies what it is that keeps you coming back for more?
I know what I want to say, but I don't know if I can say it in one word.
No, it's a short sentence, okay. Just like as summarized and compacted as possible.
I like how refereeing keeps me active, and also the satisfaction at the end of a game that I was able to not control, but to be able to manage the emotions, the tensions, and help guide that into a positive playing experience for the players, for the coaches, and for the parents, as best to my ability.
So a big aspect of this, if I'm hearing it right, is that you are getting to give a gift to people.
I've never really thought of it that way. I'm not like...
Well, it's that you are providing a service for people that is bettering their world. It's like a metaphorical soup kitchen for you. You are giving the right rulings which make their meal of soccer experience much more fulfilling than if you had not been there. That would not be occurring.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's what drives me. I'm trying to... For me as a referee, well, I do want to... I've thought about it a little bit, and if I'm able to, I think advancing in the level of games that I officiate, like refereeing older kids or like more competitive tournaments, is something that I'd be interested in doing. Actually, my roommate, who I live with here in Spain, he is a soccer referee, and we didn't plan this, but and he referees in he referees adults, in the organized, like, semi-professional level of Spain. And so hearing his experiences and his stories as he goes, and actually being able to watch him referee some of these games has definitely helped keep my passion for refereeing
that's sweet.
alive. Yeah. But I think when it comes, I do think at the youth level, though, especially like this grassroots level, basically, that because of the lack of officials is so acute, that I do feel when I was refereeing, I've only lived in Spain since November of 2021. So I was living and refereeing in Los Angeles in Southern California before then, and definitely was that feeling that, wow, like, because of the, coming out of the pandemic, there was such a pent-up need for more sports opportunities for the kids. And so if I had an open weekend, being able to, I guess it is this altruism thing, this soup kitchen analogy that you use, that, if I had an open weekend, if I wasn't doing anything, that, I'll sign up to referee a few games because we need it. We need people to do it.
Yeah. That's so pure, man. That's beautiful. All right. If you can explain your favorite non-obvious aspect of soccer refereeing, which is there one that kind of stands out that you'd like to inform us on?
I've mentioned a little bit, but the teamwork aspect, you wouldn't think it, but working as a team with the other referees is really, really important. And being able to do that is like, it's a skill that I definitely know that I still need to work on. But the whole thing is about, if you're the center referee with the whistle, you should really be trying to make eye contact with the assistant referees as much as you can, because you want to use everyone's abilities to the best of their ability, but also sort of to get their input. You can't. Soccer is a little different because you can't stop the game and have like a huddle basically with the other referees. You can, but it's doesn't look like you don't want to have to do that. Like you only do that if there's like a very serious incident that's occurred. Whereas in football, if there's a penalty, like all the play stops and all the referees get together and then they're like, they make the announcement in front of the to everyone, like on the loudspeaker. Soccer refereeing, you sort of have to, until you get to that level where you're using the radio communication, you have to be doing it with that eye contact and sort of being able to like check in with the other officials in the nonverbal way, is a skill that I wouldn't think you'd need to use, but it comes up all the time. And having that good aspect of teamwork with the other referees is important. It's also that each game, you're usually working with new referees. It can be, it's not like you have your same two other people that you work with. At least at the beginning level. And so being able to establish that rapport early on and then being able to work effectively as a team as best as you can, that's really important.
Turns out good communication is good everywhere.
I guess maybe
so before we move on, no, good.
I guess that is sort of something you would expect, but it does come up, and it really is, it can't be overstated how important having that communication is when you're refereeing.
Before we move on to your peeve, I have one it's kind of more of a footnote sort of thing, and I bet I would know the answer. What do you think of, there's this one famous ref that I am enamored with. He's kind of considered like one of like the best referees of all time. I'm going to mess his name up insanely. Pierluigi Colina?
Colina.
Yeah. What's your take?
He's the gold standard, but he definitely has a very unique style that I don't think would work with every referee. He's very
with children.
Well, no, of course not with children, but even at the professional level, because of his reputation when he was a referee, the players had a lot of respect for him, and but his style, he was very physical. He was very emotive, and he would be. He'd sometimes be physical with the players too. There's some videos of that, and
that's awesome.
he's very, he's what a career he had. He just about did it all, and he's still. I think he's an advisor in the Italian referee. He may not.
I think he's still. Well, I don't know about that, but I know he's not like full retired. He definitely is like. He still is somewhat active. I've seen some things about him, but if anybody wants to see like the most badass ref of all time, highly recommend. There are many a highlight reel on YouTube of this man just going off, and it is, oh boy. Even as somebody who is not nearly as versed in soccer as yourself, Bradley, damn, it's a fun watch nonetheless, and I'm sure for you it's a lot more like kind of informative or interesting.
Yeah, just like when you get to that level, your personality really shines through in how you referee, and you need to bring that to the table basically for the players to understand you and to respect you. And so, I would say his style is very unique, and I don't think anyone could pull it off. But he certainly did, and just nothing but respect for the GOAT.
Moving on from the beautiful to the just boggling.
Okay.
What is your preposterous peeve, Bradley?
All right. My preposterous peeve, and I was surprised at how worked up it got, but when I fully conceptualized it, it's crazy. Okay. My peeve is the fact that in English, and I don't know if this happens in other languages too, but specifically in English has this habit of changing the names of places and cities, but very, very slightly. So, for example, the city that I'm currently living in Spanish is called Sevilla, but in English is called Seville. And the only difference in how it's spelled and how it's said is the last letter. It goes from an A in Spanish to an E in English. This also happens with Rome to Roma, and why? What's the point? Why do we?
It's easy for our people to say those words with the sounds, and I don't know. It's always why does the sound of somebody who is ignorant always have to be like a bumpkin from the South? There are ignorant people up north too. It just like doesn't hit as hard, but yeah, it is very much it's gotta be like the way we say things.
That's a different issue, but I don't know why. Is it so hard for English people to say Sevilla or Seville?
I think we just like things easier. I feel like there's a tenet of the English-speaking people of the years be like, I mean, we're in control of these things. Why don't we make it easier for us? Because everything we do is for us, and we don't really care about those other people.
It's such a small change, though.
It really is. But I think Sevilla requires just linguistically, it is a different sound than most English words, like the way the L and the A are kind of coming off. Where Seville is a lot more like English sounding.
But why not just Sevilla?
Yeah, I don't know. That I can't help you with.
Well, that's my peeve. It's just you have two, sometimes I'm speaking to English-speaking people and I'll use Seville and but I won't. It's hard. You have to who's going to respond to Seville? Who's going to respond to Sevilla? And it's like this change.
Do you just pronounce it slowly and hope that you just look for ears to perk up? You're like, and just look around the room and just gauge who's yes or checking out.
Specifically for Sevilla, I'm just trying to say Sevilla in all languages because I just think there should be one word for it, and hopefully it'll pick up and we can drop the Seville because
it's their town. The fact that we are pronouncing it differently is hilarious. It's just dude, it's there. It's not like you even have to live there. So it's what you would say. It's it's their town. Just pronounce it that way. Then it even helps kind of, it helps the listener know where it is. If you say Roma, it's okay, well that's somewhere. And you can kind of understand that's probably a Romance language. So we're looking at 3 countries and it helps triangulate where it is, so it's even better for the listener if we pronounce it like the country does.
But I should be clear too that it's just for these changes that are just one letter, because there are other words Germany, for example. The country is Deutschland in German or Alemania in Spanish, And these changes are very different, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this one I'm more comfortable with because I think it would actually have to say Deutschland in English might be a bridge too far. But you're so close to being able to say Sevilla, you know? But why do you have to change it at the last letter
It's
to an
like
E?
it's like the difference between a reboot and a prequel. It's like at least with a prequel you're getting a new story. You know, like the prequel is like Germany to Deutschland, where a reboot is like they're doing the same thing again. And you're just like, oh, it's just barely different. I don't want to watch a reboot of Spider-Man again. We know that Uncle Ben dies. We know that Uncle this happens. Like Sevilla, Seville. It's like, oh, why is it the same word but barely different?
Yes.
It's the reboot of like town names.
It's the reboot of yes, yes. There's no need to reboot it. It's perfectly fine the way it is.
Yeah,
We can
they nailed it. Sam Raimi got it the first time. So there's this peeve reminds me so much of there was this great story that I remember seeing probably on like Facebook or something like that, where somebody who grew up, I want to say in like the 70s or 80s, and immigrated from Mexico or somewhere in Latin America, and they were having every time a new kid got brought in, their name got changed because it was like hard for the teacher to say or some, whitewashing bullshit. And so it was like Giancarlo got changed to George or something to that effect, where it was just like a egregious American bastardization of their cultural name. And then there was this kid, and it was like, it's this sad thing, because you're kind of denying culture by changing and like effectively like whitewashing or Americanizing their name.
Yeah.
You're just like stripping them of their culture in like this subtle and kind of egregious way. But then this kid comes in, and I can't even pronounce his name. It was so bananas. And it's just like, there was nothing they could do. There was no shortening, no truncating, no like repronunciation of a letter to make it sound American or English or whatever. It was impossible. And so this kid got to keep his name, and everybody in the class rejoiced and would just say his name for no particular reason, seemingly to the teachers. But it was just like they got to like effectively, their culture got like stuck in the class because the name was just so foreign that there's no way they could change it.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it was sad and beautiful all at the same time. Do you remember the first? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I do think about how, like people who immigrate, I guess, to the United States often have to change. If they have a hard to pronounce name, they have to choose, like, I don't know, shorten their name or choose like a nickname for themselves, and I think it's as much as, we can try to call people by their names, the way that they want to be called is a sign of respect.
Yeah. So back to your peeve, when did you first notice, like, do you remember the first town name that like got changed that really like ruffled your feathers?
It was actually when I was coming here to Spain. I hadn't really picked up on it. I hadn't really paid attention to it. But when I was coming to Spain here, I currently do live in Sevilla. And when I had my ticket, it said Seville on it. And so I told basically the gate attendants that I was going to...
No, I'm going to Seville.
Yeah, once I got here, and I was like, why does it have to be this way? But I gave my ticket to the gate attendant. I don't know the word, but I gave my ticket to her, and I said, and she's like, oh, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to Seville. And then she looks at me, it's like, oh, you mean Sevilla? And that was like, at the time, I was like, all right. Like, I was, like early in the morning, and I was like, trying to get on this like 12-hour flight. And I was like, all right, yeah, you're right. But then I realized, like, once I got here, I'm like, there's no need for this. We can just call it the name that it has, Sevilla, especially because it's so close. In English, we're so close. There's no need to make this change, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
no, I absolutely agree.
Okay, good.
it would.
Glad I didn't upload.
You have converted another.
Yes.
It is. I was really hoping that you were going to say, you said like, yeah, I'm going to Seville, and either you ended up somewhere else or that you like looked on a map with this like trade person or this flight person and they were like trying to find out where you were going and they couldn't find Seville on the map or something like that. Like, we can't find it. A man without a country.
They should have, yeah. We were like, if they had a map, they should have just been like, you should try again.
Point on the map where you think
What's
you're going.
What's that say? But I'm sure they're just at, they fly, or at LAX, they're flying Americans all the time, and just, that's how we say it. Like,
just rolling their eyes constantly.
We're like, smile and wave, smile and wave.
Oh, man. And with that, we're going to head to our second ad break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Bradley is going to enter the lightning round. Have you ran out of new stuff to do, rendering your life wholly unsatisfying? Do you have too much time on hand and have no idea what to do with it? Or are you just plain over this existence and wish for a plane with more intrigue? Might I introduce you to Addiction? Addiction deals with all these problems and more. Had to meet your significant other's parents and would rather not? Addiction. Had to go to work for the third day in a row? Addiction. Rent? Why not? Addiction. Addiction cannot be held responsible for your choice of choosing to imbibe in addiction. Any and all life-destroying fallout as a result of addiction cannot be legally pinned on addiction. But you're more than welcome to try. And we are back. Bradley, are you ready to enter the lightning round?
Lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right, put however much time it takes to bake this cookie on the clock. Bradley, is there a god?
Yes.
Shakira's voice in Danny DeVito's body or Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body?
Shakira's voice, Danny DeVito's body. Yeah.
Have you ever paid more for a meal than you made in a week?
Yeah, I did.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Let's keep it rolling. Another amazing thing.
Another amazing thing?
Yep.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
Yeah.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
I'm not so picky. Let's put the pineapples on the pizza.
If you had the power to see the future but couldn't change it, would you use it?
Yeah. If I had that power, I'd be too tempted to see. Yeah.
Kill the spider or get an adult?
Escort the spider out.
Is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Yeah, probably.
Kanye.
Don't like his most recent behavior, but I did enjoy his music previously.
So...
people are complicated, but no, for now. He needs a lot of... Yeah.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Never, no.
Which do you max out first? Intelligence, charisma, or strength?
Charisma.
Are we alone in the universe?
Yeah.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
I think Fran Drescher. Lesser of two evils here.
Are Cheez-Its addicting?
Yeah, not for me, but yeah.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Make the food, because doing the dishes is the worst.
Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
One horse-sized duck.
Would 16-year-old Bradley be proud of where you are today?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you create your own thoughts or just listen to them?
I create them.
If you have to have only one for the rest of your life, which would you choose? Rice or pasta?
Rice.
Would you put your brain in a robot body if you could?
No.
All right, so you have two options here.
Okay.
Would you rather have the power of shape-shifting, but you can only transform into a chair, or super strength, but only when you're super tired?
Super strength, but only super tired. Yeah, that seems better.
If someone you cared about asked you to help them cover up a murder they had committed, would you help them?
I don't know. It's tough, but no.
Would you rather punch a capybara or hug a boa constrictor?
I'd rather hug the boa constrictor and hope it doesn't kill me.
Would you rather be followed around by someone playing the tuba or followed around by someone freestyling jazz poetry for the rest of your life?
The jazz poetry, that sounds great.
Ugh, what's wrong with you?
Oh.
Would you rather have flight or invisibility?
Ooh, flight.
Vests or opera gloves?
Vests.
Your significant other is missing. Who do you reach out for help? A cop you've lived next to for 10 years or a hippy dippy detective an old friend recommended?
The cop, but I'd have to... Yeah, the cop, I guess.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1-hour time limit?
I don't think so.
Well, congratulations.
You survived the lightning round.
But before we move on to your prize, I, like many listeners at home, would like to know, what is your favorite food?
I would have to say burritos.
Yeah, that's a lot of burrito to eat in an hour. Unless it's like those like mini cheapos, that even then, 37's a lot of burrito.
It would be a lot of burrito.
All right,
I could do 4 or 5.
Yeah. Woof, man, that's impressive. All right. Well, now it is time to bequeath your prize, mine Bradley. What lightning question would you like to ask me, and in turn be asked of future guests?
Yes, I would like to ask: are you out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong?
It's the children who are wrong. There's no way I'm out of touch. I'm in my prime, baby. What about you? Are you out of touch, or is it the children that are wrong?
I think I would also have to say it's the children who are wrong.
Well, especially for you, right? You're offsite, Timmy, and they're like, no, I'm not. And you're like, yeah, you are.
Or like when I'm teaching in the school, and I'm 27, so I'm like close enough where I understand their references, but I'm also like, come on, please just behave, listen to me.
I swear I know more than you.
Trying to teach you things. Don't talk. I want you to talk, but not to me, not to each other in Spanish. Try to speak in English, you know?
Yeah. Feel free to say bad things about me to my face. In English, please.
Honestly, yeah.
Maybe that's the selling point. Curse me out in English to my face.
Ooh.
Do it. I want it.
To a point.
Yeah. All right. As we close up shop, anything you want to plug, recommend, places people can find you or your content?
I don't really make much content, but if you want to check out my dog again, it's at Apple, like the fruit, and then _ the golden. The golden's all one word. You already know my brother's song, and yeah.
What's the name of the band again?
Oh, Kickball, and it's called "Take the Canyon" is the song, and yeah, the thing that I would want to plug the most is if you think you could do it, or even if you don't know, I would really recommend looking into trying to become a youth sports official in your local area. I'm sure. I only know for Southern California where we have a real deficit of officials, but any local area, I'm sure, if there's a sport that you feel passionate about, or if you think you can make a difference, definitely youth sports officiating is a good way to do it. So for listeners in California, that would be through Cal South, and then going over to the referees page. But depending on your local area, will be a different place.
Sweet. That's so awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Bradley, for being my guest today. And a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you, yes, you, listening at home or wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on Soundcloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our first Patreon patron, Sabella Yellow. And if you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, there once was a man from Nantucket. He sat down on a bucket and said, fuck it, and left Nantucket. Now he lives in Sevilla. Ciao.